You're spreading poison on your toast. Okay, maybe not poison, but definitely something that costs way too much and tastes like disappointment wrapped in foil. And the worst part? You probably think you're making the right choice, because the package looks fancy, or because your mom bought it for 30 years. Here's the thing about butter in Canada. We pay some of the highest prices in the world for it, and yet somehow we're still getting ripped off by half the brands on the shelf. A block that costs you $7 might taste worse than the one that costs 4. And no, this isn't about being cheap. This is about not being a sucker. So let's talk about the 9 Canadian butter brands that are basically stealing from you, and the 2 that actually deserve your money. Keep watching, because that fancy European-sounding brand you've been buying? Yeah, it's on the list. Let's start with the worst offender. And trust me, this one's gonna hurt some feelings. Number 9 on the avoid list is Lactantia. I know, your grandmother swore by it. It's been around since 1947. The cows on the package look happy. None of that matters when you're paying premium prices for what is essentially the Honda Civic of butter. Functional, sure. Worth bragging about. Absolutely not. Here's what Lactantia does that drives me insane. They charge you the same price as the good stuff. Sometimes more, and then give you butter that tastes like it's been sitting in someone's fridge next to an onion for 3 weeks. That slight off flavor you can't quite place? That's what I'm talking about. It's not rancid. It's just not right. And don't even get me started on their salted butter. It's like they couldn't decide if they wanted to make butter or a salt lick. So they split the difference. One day it barely tastes salted at all. The next time you buy it, boom, you're eating a stick of dairy-flavored seawater. The inconsistency alone should disqualify them. But here's the real kicker. Lactantia is owned by Parmalat Canada, which is owned by Lactalis, which is a massive French dairy conglomerate. You're not supporting some small Canadian dairy. You're lining the pockets of a company that owns 256 brands worldwide and definitely doesn't need your $7. Moving on to number 8. And this one might surprise you. It's President's Choice. Now, before you start typing angry comments about how PC products are usually great, hear me out. Their butter is the exception to the rule. It's the black sheep of the President's Choice family. The embarrassing cousin nobody talks about at reunions. Here's the problem. PC butter is made by different dairies depending on where you live in Canada. In Ontario, you might get one thing. In BC, you get something completely different. It's like playing Russian roulette, except instead of bullets, it's mediocre butter that sometimes tastes faintly like cardboard. I've bought PC butter that was perfectly fine, spread well, tasted neutral, did the job. Then the next block from the same store 2 weeks later tasted like disappointment and broken dreams. When you can't trust that you're getting the same product twice, why bother? And let's talk about the texture. Sometimes it's fine. Other times it's grainy, like they didn't quite finish making it but figured, hey, close enough. That's not how butter should work. Butter should be consistent. It should be predictable. It should not feel like a science experiment. The only reason PC butter gets any shelf space in Canadian homes is because it's usually $1 cheaper than the name brands. But you know what? When that dollar savings gets you unreliable, inconsistent butter, you're not saving money, you're just postponing disappointment. Number 7 is going to make some people mad. It's Gay Lea. Look, I get it. Gay Lea is a Canadian dairy cooperative. They're owned by Ontario dairy farmers. Supporting them feels patriotic, like eating a butter version of the Canadian flag. But feelings don't make bad butter taste good. Gay Lea's biggest sin is blandness. It's the butter equivalent of beige paint. It exists. It spreads. It melts. And that's about all you can say about it. There's no richness, no depth of flavor. Nothing that makes you think, wow, this is butter. If butter was a person, Gay Lea would be the guy at the party who talks about his favorite brand of stapler. Technically present, but adding nothing to the experience. Gay Lea charges premium prices for this mediocrity. You're paying $6.50, $7 for butter that tastes like the concept of butter, not actual butter. It's like buying a painting of food when you could just buy actual food for the same price. Their salted butter is somehow even worse. It's got this weird chemical aftertaste, like they added salt and then thought, you know what this needs? A hint of aluminum. I don't know how they achieved that flavor profile, but they did, and it's terrible. The only thing Galea has going for it is that it's consistently mediocre. Unlike PC, you know exactly what disappointment you're getting every single time. That's not a virtue. That's just reliable failure. Beatrice Butter is what happens when a company decides that butter is just a side hustle. They're way more focused on milk and cream. And it shows. Their butter tastes like an afterthought. Like someone said, we should probably make butter too, I guess. And then nobody really tried very hard. The texture is all wrong. It's too soft when it should be firm. Too hard when it should be soft. It's like they're making butter in a different dimension where physics works differently. When you try to spread it on toast, it either tears the bread apart or sits on top like a sad little blob that refuses to melt. And the flavor? Imagine if butter had a shy younger sibling who was afraid to speak up in class. That's Beatrice. It's there, technically, but you'd hardly notice if it wasn't. Here's the thing that really bothers me about Beatrice. They've been making dairy products in Canada since 1907, over 100 years, and they still haven't figured out how to make decent butter. That's not bad luck. That's not a supply chain issue. That's just not caring enough to do better. You can find Beatrice butter for pretty cheap sometimes, and that's the only reason anyone buys it. But even at $4.50 a block, it's overpriced because you're not buying butter. You're buying butter-adjacent substance that happens to come from cows. Number 5. And this might shock you. Organic Meadow. Wait, what? An organic brand on the avoid list? Isn't organic supposed to be better? Here's the dirty secret about organic butter in Canada. Sometimes, organic is just an excuse to charge you double while delivering half the quality. And Organic Meadow is Exhibit A. This stuff costs anywhere from $9 to $11 a block, depending on where you shop. $11. For that price, the butter should do my taxes and give me a shoulder massage. Instead, what you get is butter that tastes vaguely grass-like in a way that's not pleasant. I'm all for cows eating grass. That's what cows should eat. But the butter shouldn't taste like I'm eating the field the cow ate from. There's a weird, almost fishy aftertaste to Organic Meadow butter that I cannot explain and definitely cannot defend. And the texture is bizarre. It's simultaneously too soft and too crumbly. I don't know how that's possible, but they've achieved it. When you try to cut a slice, it crumbles. When you try to spread it, it's a melted mess. It exists in a state of quantum butter uncertainty. The worst part? People buy this stuff thinking they're making a healthy choice, a premium choice, when really they're just getting scammed by the word organic on the package. Your butter doesn't need to be organic. Your cows just need to be well fed, and the butter needs to be made properly. Organic Meadow fails at the second part. Number 4 is Island Farms. If you live in BC, you've probably seen this one. If you don't, consider yourself lucky that you've been spared. Island Farms butter tastes like they tried to make butter but kept getting distracted and forgot what they were doing. There's no cohesive flavor profile. It's not sweet, not savory, not creamy, not sharp. It's just there, existing, taking up space in your fridge and your budget. The real crime with Island Farms is the packaging. They make it look all premium and local and artisanal, and then you open it up and it's just sad. Generic butter that could have come from anywhere. It's the butter equivalent of catfishing. The package promises you something special, and then you meet it in person and realize you've been lied to. At $6 to $7 a block. Island Farms is priced like it's competing with the good stuff, but it's not. It's competing with the mediocre stuff and losing. When your butter is worse than the store brand, you've got a serious problem. And I've noticed this weird thing where Island Farms butter sometimes has these little white spots in it. Not mold, just these weird textural inconsistencies that make you question what's going on at the factory. Is quality control just a suggestion? Are they making butter or conducting experiments? And I don't want to find out. Number 3, and we're getting into the really bad territory now, Scotsburn. Mostly an East Coast thing. Scotsburn butter is what happens when a dairy company focuses on ice cream and forgets butter exists until the last minute. And boy does it show. This butter has a weird, sour undertone that shouldn't be there. Fresh butter should taste sweet and creamy. Scotsburn tastes like it's on the edge of going bad, even when you just bought it. There's this tang that makes you check the expiry date 3 times because surely it must be expired, right? Nope. That's just how it tastes. The texture is grainy and unpleasant, like they didn't quite emulsify it properly. When you bite into toast with Scotsburn butter, you get these little granules that crunch between your teeth. Butter should not crunch. Ever. If your butter is crunchy, something has gone terribly wrong. And here's the thing about Scotsburn, which makes their butter even more confusing. How do you nail frozen dairy but completely bomb at regular dairy? It's like being great at painting houses but terrible at painting fences. They're related skills. Scotsburn butter usually runs about $5 to $6, which seems reasonable until you realize you're paying money for something that actively makes your food worse. At that point, you might as well just eat dry toast. At least dry toast doesn't taste sour and crunchy. Number 2 on the avoid list is going to start some fights. It's Sterling. Sterling markets itself as premium butter. They've got the fancy packaging, the higher price point, the whole 9 yards. And people buy into it because it looks expensive. So it must be good. Right. Wrong. So wrong. Sterling is the emperor's new butter. Everyone pretends it's premium because it costs more. But in reality, it's just aggressively mediocre butter in a nice wrapper. The flavor is flat and boring, with none of the richness you'd expect from premium butter. It spreads poorly, melts unevenly, and has this weird waxy quality that coats your mouth in an unpleasant way. You know that feeling when you eat cheap chocolate and it leaves a film on your teeth? That's Sterling butter. At $8 to $9 a block, Sterling is one of the most expensive widely available butters in Canada. And for what? For the privilege of eating subpar butter while feeling fancy? No thanks. I'd rather eat good butter and feel smart. Here's what really gets me about Sterling. They rely entirely on brand perception and packaging to move product. The actual butter inside could be anything. Could be decent. Could be terrible. It's a gamble. And at $9 a pop, I'm not interested in gambling. If you're currently buying Sterling, I want you to do an experiment. Buy Sterling and buy one of the good brands I'm about to tell you about. Do a blind taste test. I guarantee you'll be shocked at how much better the cheaper option tastes. And now, the worst of the worst. Number 1 on the avoid list. Foremost. If you're buying Foremost butter, I have questions. Mainly, why do you hate yourself? Foremost is what happens when a company sees butter as a legal obligation rather than a food product. It exists because technically someone has to make cheap butter, and Foremost drew the short straw. This stuff tastes like regret and poor life choices. There's no butterfat richness, no creamy texture, no pleasant dairy flavor. It's just vaguely yellow stuff that melts when heated and hardens when cold. That's it. Those are its only qualifications as butter, which shouldn't be physically possible, but Foremost figured it out. When you put it on hot food, it doesn't melt into the food. It just sits on top, sweating, looking sad. And the smell? Fresh butter should smell pleasant, maybe slightly sweet. Foremost smells like a dairy barn, and not in a good, rustic way, in a something needs to be cleaned way. The only positive thing I can say about Foremost is that it's cheap. You can sometimes find it for $3.50 or $4. But here's the thing. At that price, you're not saving money. You're just buying disappointment in bulk, because you're going to use twice as much trying to get any actual flavor, and you're still going to be unsatisfied. Foremost butter is the reason people think butter doesn't matter, that all butter is the same, because if Foremost is your baseline, you don't know what good butter tastes like. And that's tragic. Okay, deep breath. We've covered the bad. We've talked about the disappointments, the rip-offs, the brands that are actively making your food worse. Now let's talk about the good stuff. The butter that's actually worth your money. Number 2 on the good list is Liberté Mediterranean. Yeah, I know, Liberté is primarily a yogurt brand, but their butter, absolute revelation. This stuff costs about $7.50 to $8, which puts it in the same range as some of the garbage we just talked about. But the difference is night and day. Creamy, with this subtle sweetness that makes everything taste better. The texture is perfect. Firm enough to slice cleanly, soft enough to spread without destroying your toast. It melts beautifully, getting into every nook and cranny of whatever you're putting it on. And when you bake with it, game changer. Your cookies will taste richer. Your pie crust will be flakier. Your croissants will actually taste like you bought them from a French bakery. The salted version has the perfect salt balance. Not too little, just enough to enhance the butter flavor without overpowering it. And it's consistent. Every block tastes the same, which is exactly what you want from butter. Here's the thing about Liberté. They're owned by Yoplait, which is owned by General Mills. So it's not some tiny artisanal operation, but they've figured out how to make great butter at scale. And that's impressive. Just because something is mass-produced doesn't mean it has to be mediocre. You can find Liberté at most major grocery stores in Canada. It's not hard to source. It's not ridiculously expensive. And it's reliably excellent. That's the trifecta. And now the best butter you can buy in Canada. Number 1. Naturalia. If you haven't tried Naturalia butter, you haven't really tried butter. This is what butter is supposed to taste like. Creamy, with this gorgeous yellow color that comes from cows eating actual grass and not just corn and supplements. Naturalia costs about $8 to $9, which I'll admit is pricey. But unlike Sterling, unlike Organic Meadow, unlike all those other expensive disappointments, Naturalia is actually worth it. The flavor is incredible. This depth that you don't get from other butters. It tastes like butter. Yes, but it's like they turned the butter dial up to 11. Everything you make with it tastes more buttery, more rich, more satisfying. The texture is dreamy, spreadable straight from the fridge, which is witchcraft as far as I'm concerned. Most butter you have to leave out for 20 minutes or you'll tear your bread. Not Naturalia. It cooperates. It understands its job and does it well. And when you bake with Naturalia, forget about it. Your baking will level up instantly. That recipe that never quite turned out right. Try it with Naturalia. Suddenly it works. That's not an exaggeration. Good butter makes that much difference. Here's why Naturalia is worth the money. It's made by Woolwich Dairy, which is actually Canadian-owned and operated out of Ontario. You're supporting a real Canadian company, not some multinational conglomerate, and they care about quality. You can taste it in every bite. The cows that make Naturalia's milk are grass-fed and well-treated, which matters for both ethical reasons and flavor reasons. Happy cows make better milk. Better milk makes better butter. It's not complicated. You can find Naturalia at most major grocery chains, health food stores, and even some Costco's. It's not rare. It's not some impossible-to-find artisanal product. It's just really, really good butter that happens to be widely available. So there you have it. 9 Canadian butter brands that are wasting your money and 2 that are actually worth it. If you're still buying Lactantia because your grandmother did, maybe it's time to disappoint your grandmother. If you're buying Sterling because it looks fancy, you're paying for packaging, not product. And if you're buying Foremost, I'm genuinely concerned about you. Switch to Liberté or Naturalia. Your toast will thank you. Your baking will thank you. Your taste buds will throw a party. And you'll finally understand what people mean when they say butter makes everything better. Because it does, but only if it's actually good butter. Now go forth and spread wisely.